just like the river, moving waters on and on to the sea, like the ocean, always in motion. That is Supreme Vibes Radio to me. Yeah, this is Luciano the Messenger, and you're in tune to Supreme Vibes Radio. Way to go. Stay tuned.
Freedom. The topic for today. We refer to freedom whenever we feel a sense of being caved in against our will. And so we began to preach the need to be free and our rights to be free. But what is freedom? What does it really mean to be free? As stated by Frank Lloyd Wright, he stated that freedom is from within. What really is freedom? Now, he's looking at freedom as a state of mind. Freedom is from within. You create your own freedom. You determine what it means to be free for you. Now, let us look at our society and do note that we are programmed. Now, we are given, or should I say, we are prescribed certain types of morals and values as seen by society as the normal moral or values, or the let me say the constituted moral and values that once you are living in this society, you have to abide by these. Now, to abide by these prescribed, uniformed moral values, expectations, then it means that you are free. But are you? It begins from birth and how we are engaged and how we are programmed. Now, at home, as children, you're told what to do, what not to do. By right, yes, you're a child, and the adult is there to guide and protect you as a child. You're told how to phrase comments so that it doesn't come off as offensive, or it is not seen as an offense comment if by an adult, so in other words, you're taught how to skew your ideas and your comments, and frankly, you're taught how to be hypocrites. Now you're given the mandate of how you're supposed to act, and this mandate must be followed. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that the mandate that is given to you is because of your own doing. The mandate that is given to you is because of, okay, I'm the parent here living in my household, and this is what I expect of you. If you don't do this, then there are consequences, right? And the consequences depends on your actions, right? It happens in church. You're given the mandate. You're given the rules and regulations, and of course, if you don't act accordingly, then there are consequences. It happens at work. If you don't act accordingly based on my mandate, then there are consequences. If we examine the whole act upon which or let me put it another way. If we review the perspectives on freedom, then we will realize that freedom is truly what we believe it to be state of mind, because there's no way we can express freedom as in and of itself. Freedom, there's no way we can experience freedom with different levels of conditions, because you have to understand that there are different levels of conditions in relation to freedom. You have the state, then you have what I want to call the sub-levels. So if you're working if you're employed at a particular organization, you have those, your home, your community, those little pockets of conditions that will determine your freedom. And so if there are conditions that are used to guide your freedom, or to guide this whole notion of freedom, what then is freedom? Freedom has to be something that we believe it to be for ourselves. And let's understand this concept that I'm trying to put forward. We have to create our own sense of freedom in order to really feel as though we're free, right? And even in doing so, there are still limitations. Mahatma Gandhi once said that freedom is not worth having if it does not include the freedom to make mistakes. But some of the mistakes that we make will eventually put us behind bars, will eventually cave us in. So, what then is freedom? Let me just share this perspective of mine. As a people, we speak of freedom in many varying contexts, but have we ever stopped to ponder on the old notion of freedom? Does freedom mean the same for me as it does for you? Good morals and values are a strong foundation to build our standing in society as good citizens. The display of these prescribed morals and values determine our freedom. Or do they? Freedom to me is a figment of the imagination. As if total freedom was real, then there would be no laws to govern people, no need for security forces, and no need for prisons to institutionalize people living in freedom. Or is this the method of control in order to ensure one's freedom? Think about that a little bit. We have implemented all varying measures of control to determine freedom. We say to you that you are free to do this, but you have to ensure that you stay within this box, because stepping outside of the box could cost you your freedom. We say to you that you have freedom of speech. However, be careful what you say, because if you say the wrong thing, you might be investigated. We say to you that you have the freedom to go wherever it is that you want to go. However, be careful of where you go, because going some places might deny you of the same freedom of choice that you are told that you have. Is it a bit confusing? I say once we understand freedom, then we will understand why we have these conditions. And this is what I mean. Think about it logically. If there exists, or if there was anything such as total freedom, we would not want to be really free, because we will be held accountable for all our actions, and the accountability is what is being controlled when we are given the prescribed methods to live freely. When we're told, when we are controlled in such a way that will guide our actions, whether they are verbal actions or physical actions, but they are there to guide our actions in order to ensure that we live free. I want to, before we take our first break, I want to share another quote with you. And this one is by Pope John Paul II. And he said, freedom consists in not what we like. Sorry, let me repeat. Freedom consists not in doing what we like, but in having the right to do what we ought to do. Freedom is not doing what we like, but freedom, in his view, is doing what we ought to do. And so if freedom is doing what we ought to do, who determines what we ought to do? And since we're guided by these regulations that determines what we are ought to do, what does it mean for us to be completely and totally free? Join me right after the first break. I will discuss a little bit more about this whole notion of freedom. Remember to use our chat and let us have a discussion. It's located right on the Supreme Vibes webpage. Let's join in for the discussion and let me hear your views on freedom. I'll be right back after this break. Thank you for sticking and staying with us. Now let us continue with the discussion on freedom. There is a thing called negative freedom. So I want us to examine how we live and to, in the simplest form, to determine our freedom. We are free. Let's understand this thing called negative freedom. For example, we are free to drive. Well, of course, after acquiring the necessary documents, your driver's license, paying your tag and all these things, we are free to drive. However, the law dictates that we are not free to drive without our seatbelts. Now, if we choose to drive without our seatbelts, then there is a consequence if we get caught, right? So, the freedom of exercising the act of driving comes with a consequence. And that is just one example. Comes with a consequence. And that is what dictates negative freedom. Let me look at another example. Vaccination. Many people believe that vaccination is not healthy. Many people believe that vaccination is not healthy and they would rather not have their children be vaccinated. However, while you might exercise your right to have your child not vaccinated, then there are consequences as well. Consequence involves them not being able to go to the park, them not being able to go to school. The formal school, you probably know, will have to do homeschooling, among a number of other consequences. So that's negative freedom as well. You might not be told, okay, don't drive, right? But you're told don't drive without your seatbelt and you're told to drive within a speed limit. However, if you choose to do so, it's not like somebody is there who's going to stop you at the initial stage. However, if you're caught by the persons who implement and ensure that they monitor the laws or the conditions, then there is a consequence that you will have to pay. The emphasis on freedom is to be able to act without any type of interference. So when you think about freedom should exist. Total freedom, if there was any such thing, should exist without any type of interference. Once you have interference of any nature, it means that you're not free, totally free, right? So the emphasis that we place on freedom right, should really come without any interference. The need to interfere becomes necessary, as we are all human beings and we do not always endeavor to do good. And so, because of this reality, freedom is a farce, right? Given that our will to act becomes controlled by the expectations of the society, right? So what I'm saying is that because we are not, we don't, not all human beings, not all human beings endeavor to do good. And so because you have those persons who will do negative things. And so in order to control persons from doing negative things, we put in conditions and consequences, right? And even with the conditions and consequences, there are those of us who still carry out negative acts. I'm saying that it's because of this reason why freedom can never be complete. If we are completely free, it would mean that, okay, it is our nature to understand that there is no need for any rules and regulation or control. We know that, well, in essence, human beings are perfect. And it is my opinion, listeners, that imperfection lends to freedom within limits. So it's because of our imperfection why our freedom has limitations. So the next time when we talk about our freedom, let us really think. Let us really think for a moment what freedom really means, or what it is that we're asking for. Freedom now becomes a condition. It is a condition based on our willingness to conform to the societal expectations. So if you act within the spectrum of what the society dictates, then you are provided limited freedom, right? Now we embrace the idea of being free, and to us, being able to have what you need to do, how to share, what you get access to. Now, I would like someone to tell me the difference between the democratic country now that is still telling us what to do, right? Still telling us the things that we cannot do. And if these things are done, then there are consequences, there are repercussions, right? It's a thin line, a very thin line, right? There's really no vast difference between the two countries, because you are not free to do as you wish in either. So there are consequences and situations that guides our act. Freedom of speech. You hear about freedom of speech, and people want to exercise their freedom of speech. But however, you have to be careful what you say, because there are consequences for saying the wrong things. There are consequences for saying the wrong things. Is this really freedom of speech? Freedom of movement. What is really freedom of movement if your movement is controlled? You can't go certain places. You can't get access to certain things. You can't access certain places, even at your workplace per se, depending on where you work and what is happening. There are some places, some departments, some buildings that you cannot get access to unless you're a part of a group. That's not freedom of movement. If you can't go wherever it is that you desire to go, how do you determine this freedom of movements? Not only that, how do you determine freedom of movements if the movement that you want to do requires you to get some prescribed documents in order to move? So let's say I want to go to another country. However, I can't just get up and go to this other country unless I have the required documents, whether it is a visa or whatever it is that is required to enter that particular country. Yes, if I want to work in another country, I cannot just make the decision to say, well then, I'm exercising my freedom of movement and I'm going to leave this country that I am in and go to another country to be productive without ensuring that I obtain the required documents to do so. There are conditions. And if I don't obtain the required documents to do so, move into the country, then I will be held captive. I have to serve time for disobeying the laws of the land. So what then is freedom of movement? When you talk about freedom of movement, you should be able to move into spaces and go where you need to go at will, but this does not exist. So to wrap it all up, when we talk about freedom, I want my freedom, we analyze an individual's ability to participate and do things that possibly we can't. And this is so because of probably the individual's standing in the society or the individual's position, whatever it is. And so because we are not in that particular category, we are not able to do as that person is doing. And so we say, well then listen, I want my freedom. But even that individual, they are still free within limits, but they have fewer limits than we have. Because of their standing in society, their network, their qualification, they have fewer limits than we have and possibly can participate and do certain things that we can't do because of the limitations that we have that they don't have. So most times when we're talking about freedom, we're doing a comparison. We're okay, I want to go to this country because this country is free. And so you move into the country because you are not able to do certain things in the country you currently reside. And so because you're not able to do that particular thing or those particular things, and in another country it's okay to do it, you want your freedom. However, in that new country that allows you to do these new things, there are conditions and consequences that control your movements and control your actions for many other things. So you're still free within limits. So freedom, when we talk about freedom, is being able to engage in activities and to carry out actions that we are not currently able to carry out because of the limitations. However, being given the opportunity to carry out these new activities and actions still does not make us free, because we still have to do so within boundary and limitations. I thank you for listening this week. This is my message to you this week, and I hope you understood every single word that I said, and I hope that I would have allowed you to look at freedom in a different way. And I'm going to leave you with a question. I'm not going to answer the question. My question to you is, what is the difference between a terrorist group and freedom fighters? Hi, this is Charlene Clark, and I invite you to tune in to Supreme Vibes Radio this and every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. for our Inspirational Saturdays, and the repeat show on Tuesday from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Come join us as we discuss various relatable topics as we seek to motivate and inspire. Stick and stay with us as we look at coping skills towards being our best self. Remember, this and every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. with a repeat show on Tuesday from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Come join us right here on your radio station of choice, the Supreme Vibes Radio, as we seek to motivate and inspire while we share our experiences. Looking forward to your company, looking forward to your discussions. Stick and stay with us.